We had this gentleman on a few weeks ago to talk about a word, a phrase, a statement, but a group that he's put together. It's the founder of Leaving MAGA, and that would be none other than Rich Logis, who's joining us this morning. Along with Rich is, I don't know if I want to say member, but certainly one who made the change, who actually left MAGA, Stephania Messina. Welcome to both of you to the show this morning.
Hey, Richard. Good morning. Good to be with you again.
Good to be with you, Rich. Glad you're doing well. Stephanie, are you there?
Yes. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Good morning. Glad you're with us. So, Rich, good to be with you again. Glad you're with us. And I tell you that after the last time you were on the show, there were so many people on social media that they were like, wait a minute, you two guys are connected and talking and working together and all that good stuff. And it was just kind of funny. I mean, you probably saw some of that as well. Like, hey, whoa, wait a minute. So take a moment, Rich. So for those who weren't able to hear you when you were on last time, and for those who want to know more about you right out of the gate, let's talk about you. Let's talk about leaving MAGA as a group, and then let's talk a little bit about Stephanie's journey.
Well, I want to thank Stephania also for being with us today. She is one of Leaving MAGA's leaders, and for those who are meeting me for the first time here on the airwaves, I was someone who was more than just a partisan Trump voter. I was a MAGA activist. I wrote part of the call script for the campaign. I was a volunteer. I was a MAGA pundit with MAGA-friendly media, and it was in the summer of 2021 when I started to question my belief system and my support for Trump, MAGA, and my governor, Ron DeSantis. And over the course of that year, I had to struggle with the reality that I had been wrong about so many of my beliefs and my convictions. And two of the reasons that it was so difficult to walk away, Richard, was, number one, that acknowledgement that I had created a genuine but mistaken public persona based in MAGA lies and falsehoods. And second, that it's really difficult to walk away from a community. And that's what MAGA is. MAGA is a community. And last year I founded Leaving MAGA as a new community for people who leave, for people who are having some doubts about their support for the president, and also for friends and family of those who are still in the thrall of MAGA. We have an ebook which is free, no strings attached, at our site, leavingmaga.org. And in that book, I include a blueprint on how friends and family can look to rejuvenate their relationships that they had pre-Trump with those closest to them. So I founded Leaving MAGA as a new destination because I believe, Richard, that even for someone who might want to leave MAGA, if they don't have a place to go in an exit and off-ramp, they will most likely not leave MAGA and will stay even though they know they should not.
Wow, that's so profound. And I want to come back to something that you said here today, and you said it before. Though I supported Trump and MAGA for what I thought were the right reasons, I was wrong and will work as long as necessary to make amends. One of the big comments that I get, or let me not say comments, but one of the areas of conversation that I get often is when someone is finally awakened, if you will, someone kind of realizes that they thought they were part of MAGA for the right reasons. They thought they were following Trump for the right reason. Then they realized that they were wrong. This is for folks who don't understand the psychological part of this and the emotional part of this. It can be a process for a lot of people because it's all about, and I said this to you before, you created a bridge for people that don't know where to go when they finally do decide, hey, I got to get away from this. If they don't have a place to go, then they'll stay where they are. And it's sort of like a boat that if it doesn't know where to sail next to, it's probably not just going to jump out in open water. It's going to stay moored attached to the port that it's at. So what you're doing is giving people a bridge. And one of the things that I believe so many people have to do that are leaving MAGA is that they have to not only admit that they were wrong, but they also have to, in many ways, make amends. to the people that have been harmed by their decisions. And that's where your blueprint seems to come in to kind of to assist in that process. Is that correct?
Yes, it is exactly right. And while Leaving MAGA does not have any kind of ideological purity test, to really fully leave and to sever oneself from MAGA, one must take responsibility for any past actions and rhetoric that may have hurt others. And while I don't defend any ignorance myself or others, Richard, I will say that I do believe deep down that most MAGA Americans are good people, but I believe that they have had their normal and natural fears and concerns, which all of us share. I believe they've had them exploited and manipulated, and they've been led astray by the president and the Republican Party. And I would stress to listeners that I think GOP and MAGA are interchangeable. When I was in MAGA, it was a fantasy of ours to kill the Republican Party and supplant it with the MAGA Party. And that, unfortunately, has been achieved.
Do you think, Rich, and this is a question that's come up to me or been presented to me, when you say that many people were deceived, they were misled and all those things, do you think they were predisposed because of their bias already to go in that direction? I mean, this is to put it in not soft language, a racist that's been raised to be a racist or a sexist that's been raised to be a sexist just needs to be tapped on the shoulder, i.e. tricked by the president and the GOP, and away they go. So there's got to be some predisposition there already, right?
I think that is applicable to some, but I think there are more, Richard, who have been conditioned to believe over the course of many, many years of Republican and right-wing lies that liberalism is the source of our personal and national ills. And in addition to liberalism and liberal democracy, that I think so many have had their beliefs shaped into thinking that. And if one thinks that, then it's very easy to, over time, believe that something other than democracy is a way and democratic process is a way of resolving our disputes. So there's no question that, like any group, there are some bad people in it, but I think it runs deeper than that. And I think that what we see with MAGA is living proof that over time lies work, and the president is not some kind of propagandist mastermind. What he is shameless, and there's never been, I think it's accurate to say, in my view, that there's never been more of a shameless public figure than the president. And it's very hard to compete against shamelessness, but we still need to do it. And one of the ways we do that is tackling mis and disinformation. That's why the Democratic Party needs to start doing their own national town halls. Since some Republican elected officials won't do it, that's an opportunity for the Democratic Party.
Man, Rich, I've been saying that for weeks now, where there's an opening. If a Republican elected official isn't going to show up to do a town hall, then the Democrats should step into that void right now. And ALC spoke loudly to that last Friday, that she's ready to go. And we've got some information we're going to talk about later this week. Stephania, take a moment, and again, welcome to the show. Rich and I got off on our direction. I don't want to leave you just there going, guys, I have something to say. But so my apologies there. But Stephania, take a moment, take a few moments, and share with us your journey in and the out and where you are now.
So I do want to pick up on something that you both discussed, and that was manipulation. You said, are there some underpinnings in MAGA followers that we can look to? And although I share all of the sentiments that Rich has detailed, that is why I am a part of this organization, because I feel it is so important for people to realize that the divisiveness is created by design to keep us separated, and that the only way we are going to find common ground is to actively seek it out. And that is what I think is so important about Leaving MAGA. But back to the manipulation. So I was a member of the evangelical church beginning in 2014. And at that time, Trump was not a figure in the church. And it wasn't until about 2016, of course, when he really hit the scene in the church. And By 2017, I was unbeknownst to me, I had been fully indoctrinated into Christian nationalism. And the essence of that is that our churches were collectively teaching us that this was a Christian nation under attack by Satan, and that abortion and gay marriage were cursing the land, and that Donald Trump had been chosen by God to save America. And by 2017, that was a fully cemented idea within the church, and that is why it is my firm belief that that is where MAGA was truly born, and that is where the core of it is burning. That's where the lifeblood is. And so in 2021, after COVID and after a series of events, I left my church when I finally realized that it no longer represented the love of Jesus. Not after COVID, not after George Floyd. We realized it was no longer a safe space for our family, and we left. And leaving gave me the space, gave my husband, gave us, our family, the space to realize just how deeply we had been lied to and manipulated. And so today, I am still a Christian. I practice my Christianity, however, more authentically, with Jesus-like empathy and love that MAGA anti-Christ leaders like Elon Musk and Donald Trump openly declare to be a weakness. So like Jesus flipped the tables in the temple, I am standing here flipping the narrative of MAGA in the church, because those two things are mutually exclusive.
Wow. That, Stephania, is an extraordinarily powerful statement, because a lot of people won't go there. They won't talk about their faith and how their faith was abrupted and interrupted by MAGA and has taken hold. A lot of people don't want to go there because they're worried. And I have to ask you this question. They're worried that if they step up and talk about how this is not of, fill in the void, Christ, of Allah, of Buddha, of spirituality, if you don't even want to go down the road of a specific, Christianity, as it were, it has become hard and harder, because you said it's rooted now in the church. So talk a little bit more about that experience and how that made you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So my husband had been training to be a pastor in the church. As I said, we became saved and entered the church in 2014. My husband was from a long line of pastors. His grandmother and grandfather were both pastors in East Detroit, Michigan. His father, Sal Messina, was a prison minister in Detroit, and so he passed away in 1998. And my family was long entrenched in the evangelical church. And so that was a place where, when we entered into, we felt very safe and we felt very accepted, especially as a family. We have 5 young boys, ranging in age from 6 to 19. And so the church offers this space that does feel safe in a modern America where there are very few free and safe third spaces. And the church is kind of one of those last existing places in America. And we were all in. We became leadership. Again, my husband was training to be a pastor. I, a pastor's wife. I led children's church. I homeschooled my children for 4 years pre-COVID. As I said, I was all in. It was our entire lives. And when we walked away, we were fully ostracized. So a life that we had built, a community that we had built for nearly 7 years, when we walked away, no one followed. And we spent 3 years deconstructing and rebuilding our lives on our own. And it was an incredibly dark and difficult time. And that is why when I met Rich and I learned about Leaving MAGA, why I had to become involved with the organization, because it doesn't have to be a 3-year walk in the darkness. It can be aided by other people, such as myself, who've been through this, because unfortunately, in my opinion, the American church is no longer a safe place for families. They refuse to take stock of what is wrong, and instead they continue to point the finger outside at the transgender community, at the gay community. And it is something that no Jesus-loving Christian should stand for, because it is the absolute opposite of the spirit of Jesus to seek to harm others. And
yeah, that's
my
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Stephania. Finish your point.
Oh, no. I just want to say that my message is especially for white women in the church, and I just beg you to, I'm sure you put your children first and that you believe in supporting Trump, that you are. I believe that at one time as well. But the stark reality of things is, while he in the Oval Office blames the transgender community for all of the woes that are collectively occurring with our children. He fails to address the biggest issue. I have 4 children in public school, and I hear nothing being done about this epidemic of gun violence that is now the #1 mortality rate. And so when I look at the faces of my children, I will do anything to protect them. And so supporting Donald Trump, Elon Musk, this MAGA movement does nothing for our children in reality. What they tell us it's doing, that's the manipulation. Those are the lies. And you have to step away from the echo chamber that is MAGA. You have to step away in order to be able to realize that. And so that is what Leaving MAGA is asking. Just step away and take a look at this stuff, and maybe you can see that you have been manipulated. It's not like Rich said necessarily that these are bad people, but they're people who are likely damaged from trauma or just from being lied and manipulated to, and there is a safe place where they can go and seek this information, and that's leavingmaga.org.
Well, I will say this, and Rich, before we come back to you, Stephania, one of the things that I think is incredibly important, which is why I fought my instincts to jump in and ask you a question, Stephania, is that people need what you just said. Now, I know the Dems got work to do, and we can talk about that all day long. And so that's not the point here. They got a lot of work to do to make sure things are better in terms of messaging and all that, like I talked about in the earlier part of the show. But what you just said is so incredibly important for people to hear. And we're probably going to create some sort of a segment so that people who are listening to our show can take your message, Stephania, and pass it on to the people and their families, coming back to what Rich just said, that don't have a bridge. Where do they go? What do I do? I'm trying to leave this place, but I don't know where I'm going to go. If I leave, where do I do? And that's why I feel it's important to have you guys on, because, yes, I can throw all kinds of darts at the MAGA thought process and belief. And I know that people have been hoodwinked and people have been, taken in and twisted and manipulated, to your point. It does help tremendously when there is a person who was there that can speak about their journey from where they were. And both of you guys have a different word, different meanings, but at the end of the day, it's still the same end result. And your journey away from it to something better. And Stephania, I applaud your guts for calling out a specific group of people, and I'm unapologetically going to say this, but specifically calling out white women in America, because that voting block ultimately is the voting block that got us Donald Trump 2.0. And
I could not
tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And the irony is they know not what they do. And I don't want to act as if I am, helping to be over empathetic to the group that I identify with, right? That's not what I seek to do. But I believe that empathy cannot be selective. And so if we on the left are going to have this dialogue and we don't want to have empathy for the people that are in MAGA, which is what I mainly see. And it's understandable. It's especially understandable when you are in those minority groups that are being oppressed, okay? But what I'm saying is I can see the struggle and I can understand what it is that keeps them in the trenches of MAGA. And the goal is to turn the needle and to get as many people out, I guess you could say, as possible, because that's the strength that Donald Trump has. He still has strength in numbers, and he shouldn't, because those people, the women like me, are actively voting against their own interests and the interests of their children every day, and that breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart that I ever cast my vote to support what is going on today. I'm grateful I only did it once, but it was one time too many, and if I can help prevent it from happening that third time that MAGA is hoping to get in there, I will do my part. And as you said, yes, we all want to make amends. Any of us who have come out have that same shame, and that's what shame is for. It's supposed to drive you to change. It shouldn't be something we shy away from. It should be something we face and do something about, and just speaks to right the wrongs as they've shown themselves to us.
Yeah. Stephania, your voice is powerful in this space, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, and to have the guts to speak the truth, what you thought was truth that wasn't, that was a lie and manipulation, to the journey to where you are speaking the truth unapologetically. I can feel that you're apologetic about where you are right now and what you've learned and what the real truth is. So. Big ups to you for that. Rich, wrap us up a little bit again, how folks can find the organization and what's in your heart right now.
Well, thank you. Everyone can visit us at leavingmaga.org, and we've got all of our media, our socials. We've got our ebook I mentioned there, and also everyone can read an in-depth testimonial Stephania gave, along with a video conversation she and I had. And I just want to recognize the intrepidity that it takes for what she's done. And last time I was here, we were joined by Courtney Ray. So when I think about Stephania and Courtney, I believe they embody the strong woman who broke free from MAGA. And I think in Stephania's case, there's a particular credibility she has with people of faith. She went through a crisis of faith herself, and what that credibility does is it gives her authority to show that those of us here at Leaving MAGA, we are not anti-faith. We are not seeking to abridge anyone's right to freely worship, and it's why we actually use a lot of religious imagery. And with Stephania, she had her own road to Damascus moment where the scales fell from her eyes. And what I will say to listeners is that this is going to be a grind. It's going to be grueling and arduous. But to quote the book of Isaiah, we're going to bring good news to the afflicted. And to quote the book of Romans, we're going to be patient in our affliction. And I say that as an excommunicated Catholic. My wife doesn't like that joke, but I say it as...
Rich, you weren't. I'm sorry, man. You aren't alone in that space. There's a number of excommunicated folks of religion, but they've maintained their faith and their spirituality. And I would say that there's probably more people like that, and that are leaning into their faith and leaning into their spirituality, and not a singular religious group. And what's happened with that, and you guys both have probably experienced is that there's a bigger, more open conversation when people can lean into faith and spirituality than a singular religious group. And that's what I'm hearing from both of you. So I thank you both for being with us. And I thank you for the organization, Rich, that you founded, and Stephania for your courage to speak out and keep fighting in this space. We got you. We know it's tough, and part of my responsibility is to bring the tough but the good to what we do with our show. So it's a joy to have you both with us again, and I know you guys will be back with us again in the month of April if we got things on point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be back, and I'm also happy to have accompanying me others who have left. And again, I just want to recognize Stephania's bravery in doing what she's done and continuing to lead in our organization. Again, people can find us at leavingmaga.org. And as always, Richard, it was a pleasure being with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rich Logis, and thanks, Stephania Messina, for being with us this morning. You guys have a great day and a successful week, okay?
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Bye now.